I had forgotten how amazing autopilot on the highway is. Everything I was saying about autopilot in the city, the beta on city streets driving, it's not great, you know. But when the markings are clear and the road is wide and the traffic is sparse, this thing works like a charm. It changes lanes correctly. It's just awesome. I feel like I'm chaperoning maybe an 18-year-old driver when I'm on the highway, much more so than like a learner's permit driver in the city. So again, I could not be happier with the Model Y purchase. For anyone who's on the fence thinking about getting a Tesla, I say go for it if it works out financially. You also have to run some calculators and look at the cost of ownership of a regular car versus an electric car. There's a lot less maintenance. The fuel costs are going to be considerable. It's I can see where this is going to lead, and that's full self-driving beta going gold, coming out to everyone. It's going to be game changing. I think eventually they're just going to have the screen and you're just going to say go here and it just goes there. I know that's the whole point, but I really do like when you're on the highway driving this thing, you realize, oh yeah, it's going to happen. And then when you see the full self-driving beta videos online, you're like, okay, it's got some room, it's got to work some things out. We got to make sure that the camera system, the positioning of all the cameras around the vehicle actually works in the way it's going to be intended. But it's it's weird knowing we're in the future as a person individually, but the rest of society being so ignorant of the fact like we're already here. That happened actually a few years ago when VR came out. I was pretty early in the VR virtual reality space in terms of a consumer adopting, and I've had a Vive for quite a while, and then I got the PS VR system, and like, my family who's not tech nerds like me, I'm 37 and I'm totally in on tech and all of that. And, before I even got VR, I knew it was the thing and I was like hankering after it, but there was no real killer app. So I had delayed, but I knew the technology existed and I knew how immersive it was. I think the general populace just still thinks that that's something that's in the future. I think more people are wizened up to it now, but for the longest time, people didn't realize, or they had, like a very poor intro to VR with maybe something like a Samsung phone that clicks into a device. It's just some fractal lenses. But the actual technology of where VR is with sub-millimeter tracking, it's amazing. It's literally the future. Now I have a Vive Pro system. I've got the Steam VR base station 2.0s, and it tracks like a charm. It's really amazing, and even that now is outdated. They've got inside out tracking headsets that are just like fully immerse you, and I think once they can get even higher refresh rate screens, higher resolution screens, and the technology is only going to continue to improve, and that motion sickness, that sort of like out of body feeling that is which is a limiting factor for some people getting on board with VR, I think that's going to go away fairly quickly. So all of the caveats about like this thing's mainstream but it's actually not, same thing applies to electric vehicles, self-driving. It's here. Like, it's not fully baked out, it's not perfect, but it's here, and the sheer percentage of people that aren't even aware that it exists, and it's actually like, I'm using it right now, right this moment. Man, this is gonna change the world, and I think that's what my, that's why I've taken such a large position in Tesla stock over the last 2 years. Is like, it really is and it's going to have so many impacts. So many different industries are being disrupted. The energy sector, the way that we arbitrage energy as consumers versus companies that own power plants, right? Like throughout the latter portion of the 20th century, we took all of that and kind of stopped regulating it so strictly through the government and gave control over our energy to private companies. Well, guess what we're doing in the 21st century? We're taking all that control and we're putting it over into the hands of individual Americans. And I supposedly, across the world, like Tesla's doing this worldwide. And you have a power wall, you have your vehicle to act as a battery sink and storage and feedback to the grid. You have solar on your roof. Like, you are set. You don't need a large utility company. Tesla, this whole like conservative philosophy about private industry funding, private industry answering the needs of consumers or Americans more effectively than the government. I have issues with that on the whole, but for certain sectors of the economy, like energy production or utility scale items, I do think private industry sometimes can act as a better arbiter of innovation and value to the average American. I think what happens is at the end of a cycle, right, at the end of one of these, the private industry comes in and all of a sudden we have a whole nation that has access to electricity at super cheap prices. But then as that infrastructure and as that industry starts to not die but just age, the private industry does start to actually kind of glom on. They don't want to give up. They're charging high prices. There's actually a bit of a decrease of value to American citizens. But then you have a company like Tesla that comes in, they innovate, they disrupt, and now there's this whole new value that's going to far outstrip what large energy conglomerates ever could have offered individual Americans. And that I can see the utility in having private industry provide for the American people. But we have to ensure that our regulations are put in place. We absolutely need regulation, but we need to ensure that we're constantly cleaning up and doing our housekeeping and doing our due diligence as a government in ensuring that those regulations don't keep us from making progress and keep us from making advancements and jumps to the next version of what that private industry can do for us, right? We need to facilitate innovation and we need to facilitate change and new solutions that offer value to American citizens. Otherwise, the government's not doing its job. I think Elon Musk and all of his team have found a way to navigate between the cracks, right? I think that the regulations are very prohibitory, but they've found a way with all these genius people working at these companies to fit in between that regulation framework and find a way to create a system of companies that is going to usher in that new wave, right? And Tesla is not going to fully dominate this market, but what's amazing is that they created the market for now new competitors to come in, and they're going to have that large market cap, but I don't think there'll be a monopoly. I think that they are very forthcoming with patents. I think they've gotten their cards a little closer to their chests in coming years, but only because the competitors are finally coming. Man, how exciting. I know that this has been a bit of a rant, but just wanted to share my thoughts and hopefully talk with you all soon. Take care.